Episode 39 of Politically Conscious returns today at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Fox News says Trump's D.C. takeover is a win, but Shelley Wynter blasts Democrats for pimping black voters. Co-host Emille Bryant warns it's just a test run for something bigger. Meanwhile, Trump's redistricting push in Texas has Roland Martin crying Jim Crow 2.0. Is he right or just playing on emotions? If you're tired of the propaganda, listen to us. What's up, everybody? It's the return of Politically Conscious episode 39. We are fully manned as our man Shelley Wynter is back. Emille, glad to be back in this thing. Got the whole team this time. Let's see what we can make happen, man. Episode 39. We've been at this thing for a few months now. Here's some background noise. I don't know if that's me or y'all. All right. Emille, you with us?
Yeah, I'm with you. Sorry, I was silencing my phone.
Okay, good stuff, brother. All right, so we're going to start with y'all, man. If you're a first-time watcher of the Politically Conscious show, we basically react to political clips around the internet and give you our expert opinions from both of these political consultants. Well, Emille's a political consultant and Shelley Wynter is of the Shelley Wynter show. But Emille, if you will, tell them who you are so we can get started. Got a lot of clips to play. We're going to get in this thing and give them no propaganda as always. Thanks for being with me, brother.
Yeah, Emille Bryant, political consultant, author, and speaker. I've advised candidates from federal Senate elections all the way down to local elections. My job is to help them tell the truth, try our best not to spin, but most importantly, candidates tell the truth to the voter. They can handle it, and even if they can't, they need it anyway. The truth wins supreme, and as we say, bad news does not get better with time. Give it to them straight, no chaser.
I love it. Shelley, glad to have you back. Some of our actual viewers have been calling me specifically saying they want to see you on the show. So glad to have you back, brother. I know you're a busy man, so thank you for being with us today. Tell them about the Shelley Wynter show, and then we're going to get started with our first clip and get this conversation going.
Yeah, Shelley Wynter show airs every Monday through Friday, 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. on 95.5 WSB Atlanta's News and Talk. And please listen. You can listen online at WSBradio.com. So thanks for having me, Montoya.
No, absolutely. Let's get this thing started.
I've made Washington, D.C. just an incredible place in literally 4 days. I have friends that say they're going out to dinner. Did you see what's happening with the restaurants? They're bursting. They're all closing and going bankrupt.
That is President Trump on making D.C. safe again. The DOJ has some numbers to back him up. Take a look. 52 arrests just yesterday. A total arrests of 465 in just less than 2 weeks here. Now, some Democratic strategists seem to realize they're losing on this issue. Yeah, as a soft on crime issue, accusations pile up. An article in The Hill is titled Democrats Face Challenge in Countering Trump on Crime. An excerpt reads this: Washington residents still feel like crime is too high and too pervasive. From a raw political perspective, you never want to give your political opponent an opening to address a real concern that your constituents have. Wow. But that appears to be exactly what's happening here, and even some in the liberal media are now finally admitting to it.
There has been a problem in D.C., and it's not as safe as the nation's capital should be.
Look, I mean, there is a crime problem everywhere. I mean, in multiple cities. Big cities have traditionally had crime problems. But there are a lot of people who feel unsafe in big cities.
And even more from two of America's most liberal publications, The Atlantic, with Trump is right that D.C. has a serious crime problem, and a New York Times opinion piece now noting many D.C. residents are secretly glad to see more uniforms. No matter what statistics say, they don't feel safe. Joe Concha, Fox News contributor, joining me now. Joe, as someone who used to live in D.C. and ran 2 years ago out of D.C. because of crime, this issue is driving me crazy when I hear people try to make the argument that there's nothing to see here. And here's where we are now in this saga. This is Byron York in the Washington Examiner putting it perfectly here with his headline: D.C. crime and the Trump is bad, but he's right effect. That is in full swing. At least for the moment, fewer and fewer are claiming that crime is going down. It was always slightly ridiculous for Democrats to argue that crime in the district is just not serious enough for federal intervention. Now, at least, there is some agreement that the problem really exists. So what happened?
Shelley, I'll start with you.
I mean, look. The best way for me to explain this, what do we say? No what? Propaganda? Right, no propaganda. Really quickly, years ago, I worked on a mayoral campaign of Jesse Spikes. He was in the mayor's race here in Atlanta when Kasim was running, Lisa Borders was running, Caesar Mitchell was running. Caesar dropped out later on and ran for city council president, but it was a big young gun race. And that race was pretty mundane, regular issues, jobs, education, affordability, regular big municipality, big urban area issues. This is when gentrification was starting. A white bartender was cleaning, shutting down for the night, throwing out the garbage on Memorial Drive. And some young youth jumped him and killed him trying to rob him. And that entire race turned on the murder of that one white guy. One. Up until that point, murder in Atlanta was all the time. You could say crime is down 10%, crime is up 10%, whatever the case may be. We know people were dying, innocent people were dying often enough. And that race turned because gentrification was happening. So your voter base wasn't entirely black anymore. There were a lot of urban pioneers, white people moving into Atlanta. That one murder was one murder too many for those people. In our communities, we have come to accept living in high crime areas as a fact of life. We have not that we accept it, not that we're criminals, not that we are okay with it, but we've come to accept it as kind of, well, you live in a city. As a matter of fact, to the point, how many of us as black men know people who talk about, yeah, I was raised in Brooklyn and it's a tough guy thing. I got out of Brooklyn, I got out of Chicago, I got out of, Old Fourth Ward or whatever. But the point I'm trying to make is that crime is viewed differently by people. And so to that point of that piece that you just dropped, in DC, you can't break it down to a statistic. You can't say crime is down in Atlanta. In DC, there's no reason for this. Yet they had 100 murders through August 8th. At the point when he moved in, they had 100 murders up until that point. So there's a group of people who will argue, black and white, mostly liberal, who will argue, 100 murders, that's it. And there's another group of people who say one murder, that's too many. And crime also, and I'll end with this, crime is perceptional. Crime is not about a stat. You can't break crime down to a stat. Crime is a perception. Do you have the perception of safety? I have a lot of listeners who listen to my show, and I rarely, if ever, do an event inside of 285 because many of them won't come. They just won't come. And if they do come, they're leery and looking over their shoulders. Now, is that because Atlanta's filled with crime? No, but the perception of safety is not there for many people. And so crime, you can't boil crime down to a stat and say it's down because you're really saying, what is it down from? It's 100 murders in DC in 8 months. Oh, it's down. Well, what is it down from? 200 and some odd murders last year. 118 murders last year. And where was it 2 years ago? 200 something. So you can say it's down.
Let me let Emille jump in. Let's let Emille jump in.
So big urban areas are full of crime. I mean, that goes hand in hand with the actual what's called reality. We're looking at someone who used Washington, D.C. as a test case. Let's be very clear. crime is down. Yes, you can always go to the anecdote, the individual person. I have family members and friends who were violently murdered. I understand the impact on an emotional level. Nonetheless, we do not make policy decisions on emotion. We make policy decisions on data. And the data is very clear about Washington, D.C. Murders down to its lowest rate in 30 years. There are at least 43 other cities, most of them in red states. Some of those red states have sent National Guard troops to Washington, D.C. to secure it. Of course, crime is down if you put 4,700 more people on the streets to police the people. But what people are being policed? Primarily black people. Why is that? Because crime is higher or because they're black? Yes to both. And here's the problem. We're not addressing the fundamental issue. DC is under-resourced, it's underemployed, it's underfunded. It has been for decades. And when crime was at its worst, when DC was truly the murder capital of the nation, Congress could have given a rat's behind. In 1989, Congress tried to take over DC and run it itself. It was a disaster. Just because you have 2 weeks of data that suggests, and that's all it's doing, is suggesting that DC is safer than it was 2 weeks ago, doesn't mean over the next X days or months that trend will maintain. If you put a draconian force, and that's what you're hearing, you want to talk about anecdotes? Black people can't sit on their porches at night anymore because they're being harassed by these National Guardsmen who are saying, go back inside, for drinking on their porch. This is not me making it up. These are DC residents talking to me because I used to live in the district. I understand what it's like to be out. And I used to live in one of the higher crime areas too. I lived in Southwest DC 15 years ago. I understand exactly what's going on there. But at the same time, DC has been under-resourced, underfunded, underemployed. And yes, the schools are terrible, but that's because they're under-resourced and the people there are undereducated. I'm not saying that those are excuses, but those are reasons. And those reasons are not being addressed by adding 4,700 National Guard members to the city. You're going to have to hit it systemically. And President Trump right now is not hitting a systemic problem. All he's doing is optics. And the optics will look good for a few weeks, perhaps a few months. But overall, if you want to fix crime, you're going to have to resource DC properly.
When we say crime is a perception, Shelley, which you are correct about, the perception actually comes from the propaganda. If we say we're tired of the propaganda, listen to us, then we must own that the perception is full of propaganda in itself. And so you're not reducing crime to a number per se, but if we're saying there's this need to take over, wouldn't we want to take over when crime is actually rising? Like, isn't that just what you would want to do? But here's the bigger picture. And this is a question that I want to ask both of you, and I'm going to play this next cut. Emille, if you remember from the last show, we highlighted that the conversation we're having right now is actually a red herring because you proposed that this was a balloon test for something bigger. And so to even delve into the numbers versus the perception versus the reality is actually exactly what, according to you, we want to do because of the bigger picture. Shelley, so what are your thoughts in reference that even having the discussion over the perception versus the reality is actually propaganda and a waste of time because Emille thinks this is a balloon test for something bigger? Emille, you may need to explain that, but I wanted to hear your thoughts on whether having this conversation is a waste of time based on the bigger picture. Go ahead, Shelley.
I think that you can't, on one hand, scream programs, and DC has always been historically underfunded, and then scream crime is down to over a 30-year low. So clearly the underfunding doesn't count because you reduce crime to a 30-year low. So the funding doesn't matter, right? Or it does matter. So you can't really throw both out there, right? But to the point, what has been done previous to this? What has anybody done previous to this? And the idea that there are high urban areas in red states Those red states, those are all city officials. Those are run by city officials. So the high crime has nothing to do with the governor necessarily or anything else. We all know that crime is local. You know, it's interesting to me on the one hand how we say there's no such thing as black on black crime because all crime is familiar because it's within your neighborhood. And then we skip to, oh, red state has a high crime in a major urban area, so it's the red state's fault. Look, and as to the takeover, because it's a larger issue, he can't go into another state with the National Guard unless a governor asked him to. So we know that. So the fear-mongering over, oh, this is something start of something to come, that's fear-mongering for political reasons. The fact of the matter is he can go into D.C. because the federal government has oversight over D.C. Sharon Pratt Kelly, the first elected African-American female to any major city as mayor, called for Bill Clinton to send a National Guard in 1993 when murders were up at 400 plus per year. He declined. When he declined, he said, not that it was a bad idea, not that it was something we shouldn't do. He declined because he didn't want to be the one to do it. He wanted Congress to do it. And that's what he said then. Many African-American leaders at the time, because she only served one term, that cost her re-election, many African-American leaders, civil rights groups, pastors, all the same, familiar people, all were against it. Meanwhile, 500 people a year were being murdered in the streets and a rampant drug problem was proliferating in that city. And so, it's one thing to complain about what Trump's doing. It's yet another thing to say, what is your plan? What is your plan to keep kids safe in these neighborhoods? What is your plan to keep women safe in these neighborhoods? And the point I'm trying to make is everybody says, oh, one white dude gets beat up that worked for the government and Trump sends in the National Guard. Like I said earlier, one murder to some people is one too many. One beatdown by a gang of young people trying to carjack a car is one beatdown too many.
But let's call that what that is, Shelley, if we're going to go to the propaganda. I think what you're saying makes sense. But when you say that last thing, I just have to say, we're in America. So when we say perception is crime, if you see black people kill a white person, that's the one too many. Let's call that what it is versus saying one group is more concerned about one murder versus another murder.
Who cares, Montoya?
Let me finish what I'm saying.
No.
Let me finish. I didn't get to finish. If I go to the south side of Boston, if I go to the south side of Boston, those one murders don't ramp up. This is what's happening. So I'm just saying, that's just
you know why?
It what it is.
Do you know why? Do you know why? Because when you go to the south side of Boston and someone gets murdered by a black man, murders another black man, and the cops roll in, what happens? Oh, we ain't see nothing. Oh, I don't know what happened. That's why. There's no outrage.
That's not what happened.
Right. That's not what happened.
Not what happened.
Nah.
That is not what happened.
Every major city with a heavy black population has been marching. They have been protesting. Advocating for their own community. Don't even say that. Don't even say that. That's not true.
It is true.
There are thousands of activists right now doing the work. Don't even say that.
Ask any law enforcement officer, anybody. I'm not talking about high end. I'm talking about local law enforcement officer. Ask them.
Yes, I do all the time, Shelley.
Yeah, ask them.
I do know your rights. Things locally in the community.
Right. I'm not talking
all the time.
Right. So, what do they say about solving murders in the black community as black law enforcement? What do they say?
This is what they say. Here it is. They absolutely, typically, quite often know exactly who's done it because everybody's telling. But everybody who's telling ain't involved enough to close the case. Everybody tells. That's what police officers tell me locally. Everybody tells.
So they become witnesses. They tell me. Right. So they become witnesses. If they're a witness, that doesn't matter whether they're close enough to the case. Come on, man. I'm not going to go down this rabbit hole.
He's talking about how the police respond to the witnesses who do dime out people. They are saying it. It's in every city. You're seeing the police non-responsive.
The police tell me. The police tells me that.
Wait. You're saying they're non-responsive. Hold on. He's saying they're non-responsive. You're telling me that they are responsive. Listen, let me say this.
Who's saying they're non-responsive?
I'm saying that they have the
Emille said the
information, but
police
they
are
don't act on it the
non-responsive.
way they could.
What is he saying? I don't know what you mean, Emille. Help me understand. I just did on what non-responsive.
Montoya, just a moment ago, you said that the people in the community know who's done it because they're telling the police, right?
I'm saying the police tell me that the people tell them. The police
Right.
tell me people.
And they don't close the case, correct?
When you say, hold on, what's your question?
Yet the case that the witnesses are telling are not being closed. Those cases are not being closed.
No, plenty of them get closed. Some don't get closed. That's the reality of it. That's it.
So what I'm saying is,
plenty of them get closed because people tell.
Right.
Some don't get closed, even with people telling. That's the
part I'm talking about. That's where there's a gap, and the gap is in some communities greater than other communities. In other words, in one community, you get a much more robust response when the information is there than you do in other communities. That's known across the country. Police forces do not solve crimes at the same rate for Black communities as they do for white communities. That's a known fact.
And in the all Democrat Black run city, whose fault is that? Whose fault is that?
It doesn't matter whose fault it is. It's endemic to all major cities.
You don't get the blame.
It's endemic to all major cities, Shelley.
No, in a Black all Democrat run city,
even when a Republican does it, it's still endemic.
I did not ask you that, Emille. In a Black Democrat run city,
I'm saying yes, and I'm saying it doesn't matter who is running the city. It's endemic to all major cities.
But why would it be endemic in a Black Democrat run city?
Let me answer that question, Emille. Let me answer that question. I'll be glad to answer it. Because right now, currently, this is the BS that we're falling for. We say we're going to be not for the propaganda, but right now we're running right into the propaganda because what everybody's putting out right now, because of what's happening in DC, you got Gavin Newsom calling out, for example, the Arkansas governor talking about, look at the crime in your state versus my state. We're all falling for the propaganda. We're all falling for the propaganda when you make it a Democrat versus a Republican of what's happening when it comes to crime, when the reality is this right here. I'm going to skip the cut I was going to play and just give it to y'all straight, no chaser. Let me play this cut right here. Here's the answer to your question, Shelley, just so you know. Both sides are bullshitting when you bring it into who's running the state when the crime is up, who's running the city when the crime is up. Both sides are bullshit.
Hold on, Montoya. No. Before you play your clip, understand that's not what I said. That is not what I said. What I specifically said to Emille's point, Emille said crime and cases are not prosecuted or resolved for Black communities like they are for white communities. That's what you said, right, Emille? And I said, why should that be happening in Black Democratic run cities? Period. The topic here is Trump's DC takeover. That's the topic. So stay on course. Hold on. Stay on course.
You're right.
Let's talk about if crime is not solved.
I'm going to let him finish.
If crime is not solved to the numbers as in these communities of Black people like they are for white people, or if crime is not as high or is high, whatever the case you want to say, then why is that happening in a Black Democrat run city, especially if you're going to use the excuse that Trump came into DC for a white boy? Now you can play your clip.
Now, great point, Shelley. Great point. Again, here's the point I'm making, because you said what I'm about to show is not on the conversation that we're talking about. It's a great point if we stay in the weeds of Democrats versus Republicans. And you're right when you say, hey, Emille, if that's who's running it, to your point, you're right. If we waste time in this propaganda, it's complete propaganda to even have a dialogue. That's why I pointed out Gavin Newsom calling out Arkansas. It's the same bullshit. To stay in this conversation is the propaganda. And here's my point with it, and I'll play the cut that explains it better than I can. Hold on one second. All right, here we go.
You know when no one tells you about becoming an adult? If you just know basic facts and you just care about what the data say about a thing, not just random opinions, but what the data actually say, it will have you feeling like you're a crazy person.
You look at Chicago, how bad it is.
Chicago this year alone has had a historic 32% decline in homicides and 39% decline in shootings.
And then you have, of course, Baltimore.
Baltimore is currently experiencing a 50-year low in violent crime and homicides.
Rescue our nation's capital from crime, bloodshed, bedlam, and squalor.
And as Donald Trump is militarizing the D.C. police under the guise of crime is out of control, D.C. is literally experiencing a 30-year low in homicides and violent crime. And by the way, all the data point to the militarization of the police actually increases injuries per year. And it increases the likelihood that an officer will be killed by 5.3%. What made me even think about this is because I was on Ground News this morning. Ground News is a media aggregator I've told you all about, and it shows you the blind spots of the left, right? So it shows you the things that the left is not paying attention to. It shows you the blind spots of the right, too, if you want to see that. And when you go on Ground News and you see what are the blind spots of the left? What are the things that are not being reported on? Obviously, we're talking about how Trump's militarizing the police, but look at this. D.C. Police Union Chair supports the takeover, supports this. The same D.C. Union Chair that had to bury one of his officers after the insurrection. So we have a situation where cities are demilitarizing their police, and the number and the data are showing that it is causing a drop in violent crime. And then here comes Donald Trump militarizing the police forces in D.C. And then you have a union chair in D.C. pushing the same narrative that the president is pushing while they're experiencing a historic low. I hate to sound like conspiratorial, but it makes me wonder about whether or not people actually care at all about whether or not these black and brown communities in inner cities get the relief from the violence that they experience, or whether keeping those violent crime statistics up is actually a part of the plan. Anyway, if you want to check out the blind spots of the left and the right, go to groundnews.com/DOS. You can get 40% off of their Vantage plan. That's the plan that I...
So my point, bring everybody back to the stage. So I went on further into some more research, and the reality is Shelley is absolutely correct that crime is a perception. And what I am highlighting is due to the perception, both political parties will cater to a perception versus what it actually takes to actually improve crime. And there's one reality that has always worked to improve crime anywhere around the world, and it is simply jobs. I'll give this example and I'll let y'all both jump in. So during the pandemic, we watched, unfortunately, crime rise around the country, regardless of whether it was a Democratic-run city or a Republican-run city, because again, the political affiliation has nothing at all to do with it, but we play into the propaganda and argue over it like it actually does. But we watched crime go on a 30% rise, which is the highest since crime stats were ever kept, highest rise after the pandemic. I was on a conversation with our good friend Leo Shelley, and they were with a program that he runs, and it was at the time that Buckhead was talking about annexing it and becoming in itself away from Atlanta, which obviously we know was going to financially hurt the city of Atlanta if they did separate themselves. But the big reason it was happening was after the pandemic, you had the water boards and all these crime situations. We had a couple situations that happened in Buckhead or whatever. And of course, those wealthy people not wanting crime to go up, if you will. And so on that conversation, it was starting to, I was a part of it. It was starting to turn political about what different people like in different districts and things of this nature. And I simply said to the whole panel, because I wasn't on the panel, and I said, hey, Atlanta during the pandemic, oh my, we just lost Shelley. Atlanta during the pandemic just went from 4th to number 1 in the country in income equality during this pandemic. That's the answer to why crime is rising. And everything that we're witnessing has nothing to do with who's governing what. People are without, and this is what humans do when resources are low and there are no jobs. Go ahead.
I'm willing to challenge the narrative that Black-run Democratic cities are not necessarily less safe. They are safer, and we have stats in Jackson, Baltimore, and other cities. But I'm going to go with your broader point about the propaganda.
So hold on. I gotta say, There isn't like, bro. When I tell you I go through these stats, all these different stats, they literally take something out to appear the way they want to appear. I'm telling you, I do this all the time. That. You're not going to find safer based on who the political. You're not going to find.
I'm going to agree with you.
I'm not even going to point into it a little bit. That's how it's devoid of which party is running anything. I'm not even going to let you hint
I'm
agree
with you. I'm agree with you.
I'm not even going to let you hint at Democrats is safer.
That's not my main argument.
So my main argument is your point. I'm not even going to let you hint at it, brother.
No. Listen to what's going on though, because these cities are finding ways to employ their people. That's the point I'm trying to make. That it's not the Black-run Democrat that's doing it. It's the fact that these mayors are finding ways to educate, employ their people, which is driving crime down. They're engaging the community in a different way, which is allowing people to prosper in a different way than they have for decades. That's the point that I'm trying to make. It's not just that they're Black-run Democrat cities. It's that there are job programs, education, and skills, workforce development programs that are having real effects on the lives of people. If we don't focus on what they're actually doing, not that crime is down. Remember, you said, and I agree with, crime is a symptom. What is the cause? The cause is joblessness. It is despair and hopelessness. So what are they addressing in these cities that are seeing drastic drops in crime? It isn't crime is down. It is that their employment rates are up, their education rates are up, and their workforce development programs are up. And those increases are cascading into crime rates. If other cities, no matter who's running them, do the same thing, they're going to see the same effect. That is, a more developed, more employed workforce reduces crime. You don't address crime with more cops, you address crime with more jobs. And the point that all of these mayors are making in cities where the crime is dropped is you're seeing programs that develop the workforce and employ people. That is the cause of the cascading effect called crime. If we focus on,
let me jump to Shelley.
All into the argument you're talking about. What I'm saying is you're seeing mayors develop their workforce.
You said this. Let's jump to Shelley. So Shelley, I'm calling out Democrats and Republicans for even playing into the propaganda of who's running anything, when the reality is that jobs decrease crimes, lack of jobs increase crimes. That's the reality, regardless of who's running what.
I go back to
play into the politics.
I don't disagree. But I go back to the clip that you played. The young man talked about Chicago and said it was down. You know what it's down to? 188 murders, over close to 500 shootings. Think about that, my brothers. Think about that for a second. You're talking about statistics, and you're referencing statistics based on them being down. Yet hundreds of boys, mostly black boys, mostly below the age of 18, are being murdered. And we will sit here and we will say, this is the point I was trying to make. There's cultures that don't even buy into one murder. That young man is on.
That's a lie, Shelley.
Okay. Where did that come from? Nobody murder.
I started the show by telling. I said, I
remember what you started the show with.
It's not a lie because you both just did it. You played a clip of a black man saying crime is down in Chicago, and it's still.
Did you hear what we said, though? Did you hear what we said in response to the clip?
No, listen.
Did you hear what we said in response to the clip?
Well,
Did you hear what we said in response to the clip? You're going to the clip. I'm on you to respond to what I'm saying.
That's fine. I lost the connection, but my point is, you played a clip to defend the point that
you did not. You didn't hear what we said. What I used to I called out both sides bullshit.
That's not what I'm talking.
No, it is. Listen, I know where you're going.
That's not what I'm talking.
I know where you're going.
No, you don't.
You didn't hear what we said. You're responding. We didn't play the clip to make the point you're making. You said we played the clip to claim that it was down. We didn't say that.
You didn't let me finish. You played the clip. You shouted and yelled. I've got a clip to dispute what you just said, Shelley Wynter. That's what you said.
What I said in response to it, though.
Hold on, brother. Hold on. That's what you played the clip to do.
You didn't hear my response. You can't go by just the clip.
Listen to what I'm saying. I'm not going by just the clip. I'm making the point. You're making the point that both sides do this. Am I right or wrong? because I dropped out.
No, that's not my only point. That's not
okay,
my point.
so I'm currently not arguing that point. I'm currently not arguing.
That's not the point I'm making, though. You said that's my point. That's not the point. You asked me, is that my point? No, that's not my point.
What's the point you're making?
Okay, in reference to the what I highlighted is what actually works. What actually works in a city. Okay?
I'm not arguing that.
Okay, so here it is. So
hold on, I'm not arguing that.
I'm okay. So let me finish.
You said jobs. I'm not arguing that.
Can I finish?
I'm not arguing that.
I know you're not.
I'm not arguing that.
That's not all I'm saying. You haven't let me finish what I'm saying.
What else you say?
Okay. So what I'm actually saying, when we get to what actually works, when you find what actually works, it becomes BS for you to highlight that some culture cares about a murder more than another, when the reality of when you see crime going down, forget a stat. When you see what crime is going down, and Emille pointed this out when you got cut off, he pointed out is what is the actual work that the people on the ground are doing, because they give a shit about murder, to actually lower it. So you can't say a culture doesn't care about murder when you actually watch those cities put up programs consistently to keep those kids out of those situations. There's no cities that actually that tries to do more when they have problems in their city in reference to their kids falling to deaths inside of those cities. So to propose that one murder, the difference is you want to see police, and we're highlighting police is not what works. Those communities actually do what works, and that's what's been happening in Baltimore and Alabama. The actual work, because they care about those deaths, they've been able to decrease them because of the actual work they're doing. We didn't go by the stat that crime was down. Emille actually said crime being down is not what we should be going by. Right. That's what he said when you got cut off.
So let me reiterate the point I'm trying to make. You played a clip highlighting a young man talking about crime being down. Emille says that's not the point, but the programs are working to bring down crime, which has to be the point that you're making. You can't say I'm not making that point, statistics don't matter, and then say the statistics show that the programs work. They're hand in hand. And I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm making a broader point. 188 murders is still a lot of murders. 500 shootings is still a lot of shootings. Now, the fact that you have jobs, I don't know the number of jobs that Chicago has. I don't know the number of programs that they have, but I do know that Chicago's almost $30 million in a deficit. And so I don't know what the programs are one way or the other. I do know jobs do work. And I do know there's a ton of urban areas and rural areas where there are plenty of jobs available. And I do know that no matter how much schools are funded in New York, $12,000 per pupil, Chicago, $15,000 per pupil, $10,000 per pupil in Atlanta, so you can't say the schools aren't funded. I do know that many of these jobs can't even be taken by many of these students because they're functionally illiterate. So now let's talk about who's running these cities. And then
hold on. Let me say one question. I'll let you finish. But I got to ask one thing about what you said. When you say taking these jobs, if you agree that there are no jobs, how do you?
I didn't say there are no jobs. I said there are plenty of jobs.
But so you think there are plenty of jobs in these cities? That's what you actually think?
Yeah, for these kids, yeah. For these kids, yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what makes you think there's a bunch of jobs for these kids? Because I helped, KD in Atlanta,
right?
So when they were pushing, when KD was able to get them not to start picking up the kids off the corner, because he kept doing the legislation. The thing that was happening was they had took away the summer program. That's what KD used to keep them from doing it.
And Andre put it right back. And not only that, KD.
Yeah, like you're making my point. He puts it back, and it made the difference.
I didn't say you did. I didn't argue with your point. Okay. I never argued with your point. I said both of you are right. Now,
but you said there were plenty of jobs. I'm like, what are you talking about?
It's called the. I said there are plenty of jobs. Andre brought the programs back, so there are plenty of jobs. KD was able to get those kids jobs at Chick-fil-A. What he had to do was put them in khakis and white shirts. We helped pay for those shirts. So that's not the point. I'm not arguing with you. You're trying to win an argument that I'm not having. I'm trying to make another point. The fact of the matter is, in these urban communities, as Emille said, the crime is coming down. What I'm trying to make the point of, we need the crime coming down. To Emille's point, the stat doesn't matter. Whether it's coming down or going up, the statistics don't matter, right? That's what he said. I agree with him. So now let's try and move to a point now. Let's have the conversation. We're talking about Trump's DC takeover. If your point is the stats don't matter, then you can't keep screaming, well, it's down, we don't need it. Well, then bring them in. That's part of the programming.
No, my point is about.
So if you have the National Guard,
if
you have
the culture doesn't care, is my point. I'm saying my point is about the culture doesn't care. How does it not care with all the efforts that are being made inside of the culture? My point is about the culture not caring. That's fair. My point.
That's fair. But I will still maintain that as long as you show videos of a guy saying crime is 30% down and it's still 185 deaths, then I'm and you're saying that crime is down as a positive thing. No, it's not a positive. That wasn't
my point. You said you got
that was his point. That was his point. That's the video you
So
played.
My response to his point was what I'm saying about what actually works.
I get that. We're just circle jerking.
The problem is if
I agree with both of you. You're trying to win an argument that I'm not having. I'm trying to make
a policy decision, Shelley. You're going to have to make it on something, and we typically use data. The data that I want to favor first, not last, is jobs, employment, workforce development, and education. And I know that's what you're talking about too. But the problem we have across all major urban areas is that you have a decreased tax base and therefore a decreased base for education. Does that mean it can't happen? No. It means you're going to have to do special efforts, make special efforts, which the mayors of the cities where these things are happening have done.
And the community does it.
They brought in more workers.
Forget about the politics, Emille. You can't tell me we don't care when I was on the streets with KD helping do that.
Right. This is that's my point. Every time they do something like that, they're making it happen.
I don't care who the mayor is.
This is the problem. Let's go back to the DC takeover real quick, because this is here's where all the propaganda is. You've got 4,700 National Guard troops in DC. Shelley, in another part of this conversation earlier, said that it's a federal district and therefore no longer it doesn't apply. Yet we have LA as proof of concept that you don't need a federal workforce or a federal district in order to try to take over a city. He put National Guard in LA without the governor's consent nor request.
I didn't agree with that.
He's already named Chicago. He's already named Baltimore. Do not think he won't try the same thing in those cities.
I didn't agree with that. I didn't agree with that. I did not ever agree with that.
But you have evidence that he tried it in another city, not DC.
But I didn't agree with it. I didn't agree with it.
I'm not saying you did, but I'm saying you said it's fear mongering. And what I'm saying,
well, that's true. I did say that. I retract that.
It doesn't matter if you agreed with it or not. He already tried it and it worked.
And the thing is, and slightly in his defense, those federal troops were arrayed around federal land where he is allowed to do it. But I disagree.
No, he was using them all across the LA area, and then they going with federal. He was protecting ICE agents. He wasn't in federal districts around LA. He was in all over LA.
Right. I didn't agree with it at all for the constitutional matters that and the constitutional pressures that it puts on the Constitution and elected officials. I didn't agree with it at all. But I think that what's going on in DC.
He's proven that he can do it in LA, which means he called out Chicago and Baltimore. So you better believe that the governors of those two states are going to feel some heat as he tries it again in Chicago and Baltimore.
Well, let's see. Let's see if he does. And I'll be interested to see what the response from a place where 185 people were murdered, many of them under the age of 16, 17 years old, all looking like us, or many looking like us, 90% plus looking like us. I'll be interested to see what the communities feel about that. A Chicago man was shot dead because they wanted to rob his chain on Facebook.
You can't add more troops to solve the problems that are endemic to that city. You have to do the things that those mayors have already done. It's going to take time. I agree. I don't want to see one Black death, but I also know how urban areas work in Rome. I know how urban areas work in London. I know urban areas work in Buenos Aires. It's going to be the same problem. Guns exacerbate the problem. If you really want to talk about why there's such an amplitude of murders in America versus other major cities and countries, especially industrialized nations, take a look at who has more guns available to them, and then we can talk about that. But the other stat that we want to agree with, what we know is that you're not going to go from 185 to 0 in 1 year. That is damn near impossible. And if you do it, it's going to pop back up. You have to do it in a systemic and controlled way. I don't like that it happens that way, but that's how you do it in a major city of 4 million people.
Right. So here's the point. You just made 5-10 minutes ago, you made the point that, of course, crime is next to 0 in D.C. There's 4,600 federal officers
in 2 weeks. I said across. You got to look at the long term.
So let's get it. So here's my thing. Before I continue to lose 185 down to 100, down to 75, down to 50, and I'm 15 years later because I got to provide all these jobs in order to save all these lives. Let me throw a bunch of federal officers into a city, into a major urban area, and shut it down to 0. Let's get to that point. Let's shut it down to 0.
You don't have proof that works. You have
proof that was also in the clip that you got cut off.
You just
that
said
was
it.
actually
You
in the
said
clip.
2 weeks.
You got cut off when they highlighted how it doesn't work. That was also in there as well.
You're going back to the video that you weren't using to prove a point.
The very video you
just
said.
You said I used the video. No, you said I used the video to prove a point I wasn't making.
Right.
That's what I disagree with.
2 weeks. You just said
I used the video to make a point that I wasn't making.
You just said over time, Shelley. We're not talking about a point in time. I can do anything for 2 weeks. I'm talking about 2 years or 20 years. And to your point earlier in your conversation just now, we're not going to be able to see the federal or the constitutional testing. We're not going to sustain that for 20 years. I don't know why I'm not going to conflate a 2-week period in DC with a 20-year period trying to bring crime down using jobs and other workforce development programs. Those two things do not match. They're not logically linked together. So I'm going to focus on the fact that, yes, you can have a short-term impact on crime, bringing in 4,700 bodies from other places. Those 4,700 bodies, Shelley, are going to make a difference in the short term. Over the long term, over 20 years, you're going to have to do the hard work. And the point I'm making, if you saw the whole video, you would understand that actually crime begins to go back up beyond where it was before.
Right. So we got to tell reality to get out of the propaganda. The propaganda is Democrat run, Republican run. Bring in more troops because of perceptions of crime. I'm talking about the reality of what really works. And neither political party can take these arguments unless we get bogged down into the BS versus what really works.
So here's my point. Let me end with this because it's 11:47 and I got to go. Let me end with this. Over 2 weeks, could last longer because it's a federal district and the feds can take it over. So they can stay for 6 months, 30 days, a year, 2 years, the life of his term. And if I don't lose a black man for the next 30 days in Washington, D.C., that's a victory for me. I don't know about you, but that's a victory for me. It's not short term. It's not, it's just only 0 for 2 weeks. I don't lose a life for 30 days. I'm good with that. Okay? First of all. Second of all.
So then you would also have to say, well, let's do that across the country for you to be happy before what you're talking about.
You know what?
To show you how extreme of what you're saying is.
We're talking about
reality. Because it ain't that I don't care about one black life being lost.
I didn't say that.
You can't just highlight it. I'll be happy with that as if it's some type of real solution. You can't just I'm gonna be so happy with the solution as though it's realistic. It's nothing realistic about it.
Crime always goes down under tyrants. That doesn't mean it's right.
Right. Wow. Okay.
I'm shocked at what you just said, Emille. That blew my mind.
So we skip the tyrants.
I don't understand that at all, Emille.
Let me tell you something. Let me tell you both something. I'll tell you a very interesting story. I used to live on 161st Street and Edgecombe Avenue, right in Washington Heights, New York, in the 90s. My first apartment out of college. It was an open air drug bazaar. Like, you might as well have had tents set up with vendors. You walk from Broadway, where the train was, to St. Nicholas Avenue, and on any street for about a 5-block radius, and it was an open drug bazaar. Guns, prostitution, drugs, everything. You could just walk through. That literally, it was so bad that people were offering, like, vendors. Hey, I got a T-shirt. Hey, I got a pound of weed. Hey, I got crack. Hey, I got cocaine. It was like that. I had a good friend of mine that lived next door to me who was an opinion writer for the New York Daily News, and a brilliant writer. His name was Plathel Benjamin. Plathel came out of the civil rights movement, knew Malcolm X personally, and was a major player in black politics in New York City. This guy wrote an opinion piece saying that he would be for pass cards a la South Africa if it meant cleaning up that area. In other words, you couldn't walk down that street unless you walked by a checkpoint and showed that you needed to be here. And the point I'm trying to make is, we have boys that look like us dying every freaking day. So yes, I would be for extreme measures to fix an extreme problem. And you can't tell me the argument against that is they're down 30%. Programs are working. This is that. I'm for that short-term extreme measure to save black lives, period. Now, you can be against that. I'm fine with that. But I'm open to say on this podcast and my radio show that I am for extreme measures, loading up inner cities with National Guard, with federal police, enhancing the efforts of sheriffs and Atlanta PD if it saves black boys' lives. Because up until this point, the argument is every elected official, red state, blue state, to your point, Montoya, is that, hey, I brought crime down. We only have 100 murder victims this year. And to me, that's the BS.
Well, you call that the BS, and we're highlighting that we have examples of what you're suggesting. I can show you that hasn't worked either. That's
okay.
That's what you're missing. Like,
okay,
I'm not naive to the upload of the 2 weeks that Emille's talking about. I'm not naive to bringing in the troops and what it does immediately. It's the same thing when we see these damn riots happening for whatever reason. They bring in troops just to settle them down for the moment. So you have a perception that somehow it will do what you're saying over a period of time. And that's not.
Emille just said
otherwise.
No, not the facts. Stats. Those aren't facts. Those are data points. No, you can make a statistic read what you want it to read. That young man in your clip said, and a matter of fact, a police officer is 5% more likely to be murdered when you bring in more law enforcement.
He didn't say that in the clip.
He does say it at the end of the clip. He says police. He's trying to make the point that police officers are even less safe.
And there's that potential, yes.
Oh,
right.
Right.
So we can say and make this narrative around anything. I do know 2 weeks in, to Emille's point, streets are clean, streets are safe, and ain't nobody been murdered. So for me, give it 2 more weeks, give it 4 more months, give it another year. I'm okay with that.
So because what Montoya's been telling you, though, is that over the next several months, crime will go back up and may actually go higher than it was before all of this, because that is not how you solve
the programs that you say.
You have a riot, you have a point problem, it works. But you're not talking about a point problem. You're talking about a systemic problem, and 4,700 National Guardsmen are not a systemic solution.
Emille,
if you want a systemic solution, you can't just add more force. That is the recipe for tyranny. I'm sorry, I don't believe in that. I believe in a democratic process that allows people to decide how they want to proceed.
Emille, let me do this, because
I just want to say this because I gotta go. Emille made the point. The programs are working, which is why the numbers are coming down. He's not taking away the programs. He's not taking away the programs that are working in Chicago, in Atlanta, in D.C. that you admitted are working, which is bringing the crime down. He's just stopping it as it stands. The programs keep going, and then you can remove the National Guard at any point you want to. Why? Because your programs are working. All we've done is stop the madness. And how can anybody be against stopping the madness? I just don't understand that. And I think it's a losing issue to the politics. It's a losing issue for Democrats. It's an absolute losing issue. Girls and boys and girls sports, defending illegal immigrants, and now this issue are all three losers for the Democrats. And I'll end there because we talk no propaganda. But I gotta go. It's 12.
I'm gonna steal 2 minutes from you. Okay. Give me one response to this clip, and then we'll let you go. Just give me a response, and we'll let you go. Because I need to know what's the fear mongering. This is Roland Martin, and I never know what's propaganda when it comes to him. So I need to at least get your response to it.
I need all of y'all to understand that what is on the ballot is they could wipe out with one goddamn ruling more than 30 black congressional seats. That means right now the Congressional Black Caucus is the largest caucus in the United States Congress, and this Supreme Court could literally wipe out half of the damn Congressional Black Caucus. So don't tell me you're being too emotional. Don't tell me it doesn't matter. Right now, they're looking to wipe out Congressman Cleaver in Missouri. They're looking to wipe out Congresswoman Sykes in Ohio. They've already wiped out a black seat in Florida. I've told y'all repeatedly that they want to defund Black America. They want to take everything economically, everything politically, academics, business. They want Jim Crow 2.0 to return. And what you had better understand is read a goddamn history book. Because this is exactly what happened after the 1875 decision. This is exactly what happened after Plessy versus Ferguson, when they wiped out black representation in Congress. Go read the speech of that last black Republican who was from North Carolina. The reason the Congressional Black Caucus Phoenix Awards is called that because he said to them, you may wipe us out now, but we're going to rise like a phoenix. Every single one of y'all watching, y'all want to understand why I'm trying to tell y'all, stop sitting here debating this bullshit, LeBron and MJ, and we talk about dance and everything. These white nationalists literally are trying to wipe out every black advancement that we have seen, not since the Civil Rights Movement, but since Reconstruction. This is not a drill. This is reality. You had better understand, I'm not going to be silent while it happens. And if you are black, if you're unwilling to fight, if you ain't got the spirit of Shirley Chisholm, of being unbought and unbossed, well, get your ass out the way and let some folks in who are ready to do battle.
Shelley.
You serious, Montoya?
Yeah, I want to. Yeah, I want to know what I've seen there. This was out there.
It's all silly, completely fear mongering. Complete fear mongering. First of all, what have black districts, quote unquote, black districts done for people in those districts? Emille is a Democrat, so I'd rather him answer this. And I'm not saying they've all been ineffective. I'm not saying there shouldn't be representation or anything like that. I'm just asking a simple question. I go to the Congressional Black Caucus weekend probably in the last 10 years, 8 of the last 10 years. And if you go to the foundation weekend 8 years ago and look at the breakdown of breakout sessions, and look at it from last year, it is the exact same issues. Healthcare, education, jobs, education, all of these things. You have the largest caucus, like he just said, yet we can't fix nothing in these areas. Oh, we don't have the majority. Well, we never will have the majority. So what have you been doing? Not only that, when you have a all-black district, all you do is create a consistent incumbent for 30 years until they decide to leave. Emanuel Cleaver's been in Congress almost 25, 30 years. John Lewis died in the seat. God rest his soul. David Scott is sitting there and he got to be pushed around in a wheelchair. So we should want competitive districts in our communities. Carving out and gerrymandering a black seat for the purpose of saying it's a black seat is not progress. It's only progress for the entrenched people like Roland, so that way every time a national election comes along, the same Democrats that he's defending in office that have been there 30 years can feed him program money, can feed him advertising dollars, can feed him and enrich him and his company. That's fine. The hustle is great for you. But don't get on there and act like they're wiping us out. They're not wiping anybody out. They're wiping out the hustlers and the grifters who have been serving and taking advantage of our community for the last 30, 40 years, period. That's what they're wiping out. And I'm here for it. Let my people go to a poll, a voting poll station, 2 weeks in early voting, and on election day, and in every congressional district, vote for the best candidate, whether it's a Democrat or a Republican, whether they're white or black. That's what I'd like to see. I don't want my people going to the polling location every election and there's only one name on the ballot because it's an all-black district and everybody's a Democrat. That's not democracy. That's an autocracy because you don't have a choice. So everybody in David Scott's district, John Lewis's district, now Nikema Williams, Sanford Bishop's district, everybody goes to the ballot box and they have no choice. It's between a Democrat and a Democrat if somebody decides to primary that person. And when somebody does, they're underfunded, they have no money, they have no name recognition, and they're going to lose 80-20.
One quick question, Shelley. How do you see what you're saying in relation to the 5 seats in Texas real quick? I just want to hear your thoughts on that as well. Like what you're saying now.
I don't agree with what they're doing in Texas. One, only because, hear me out, only because they're doing it mid-census. That's it, right? That's the only reason I don't agree with it. I completely understand it, but you're not losing a black district in Texas because the flood of people that are in Texas that are citizens that you're carving out these new districts for are going to be all Hispanic. The reason why the Democrats are mad is because they can't count on those Hispanic districts, which will be newly drawn, to be all Democrat. They could count on a black district to be all Democrat. And so my point is that to a Roland, what I would say to him is black people in this country, by and large, congressionally, have not really had any kind of sense of a republic or a democratic republic because you're forced to vote for the same person in many cases every single time with no competition. And if there's a token Republican running against them, they lose 80-20. And I'm not saying that's the fault of the voters, but I'm just saying, it's bad. Right. So I'm all for it. What I would like to see, you carve out, not carve out, that's a bad word. I'd like to see you, each congressional district, I think, Emille, correct me if I'm wrong, about 210,000 people makes up a congressional district. What is it?
It depends on the state, because Wyoming has a different than
right.
California.
Okay. But I know there's a numerical number, right? And so I would just like to see 250 people, or whatever. Let's say it's 200,000, 200,000, 200,000, 200,000, 200,000, and you just do it equally across. You come down, and no matter how big your state is, if it's a small state, you cut it in half. If it's a big, whatever you do. But this idea that everybody does. And it's the disgusting part of politics. Right. But Democrats and Republicans do it. This idea that you take a district and you start up here and come down here skinny, and then you come around, you got a big bubble at the end. I mean, that's what we should get rid of. And I think this fight that Roland and people like Roland, mostly on the left that are doing, and on the right that are having, I think it's failing to address the political nature of gerrymandering and redistricting, because they both do it. So they're just arguing back and forth who's doing it for what
worse and
purposes.
worse and worse.
But they're both doing it. And so
Right.
the people should stand back and say, hey, man, how about just doing it like a square box, 200,000, 200,000, 200,000, 200,000, and let the chips fall.
Hey, we just stole time from you, Shelley. So thank you for the extra time. I'm gonna let you go, brother.
Thanks,
But
Shelley.
I didn't want to.
Brother.
Yeah, I didn't know what to look for there. So thank you for your thoughts, brother. Appreciate
All right, brother. Thank y'all
for the extra time. Yep.
All right.
So Montoya, the thing is, and Shelley's right. I'm a big believer in bipartisan, nonpartisan, or algorithm-driven redistricting. Any of those that are going to, or a nonpartisan commission, an independent commission. All of those are good. Every representative represents roughly 700,000 voters, except in the small states where they represent a few fewer. So this is where we have a giant issue in Texas. They're redistricting based on something the president initiated versus on what is right for Texas in and of itself. They've already tried to hide it, but you can't. You know, what Kenny says from Kenny 77 is right on point. You know, you can't build your base off of one group of people and then expect another group of people to prosper. There are reasons why urban districts work. There are reasons why rural districts work. There are reasons why a coastal community versus an inland community work. You have to have these people common interests come together. So geographically grouping people makes sense sometimes. What doesn't make sense is when what Shelley was talking about, where you have these weird curves and contours and all that sort of stuff. But here's the bigger point, and this is back to Roland Martin. Roland is fear-mongering, but I also think he's kind of right to do so. You have the attack on the Smithsonian very clearly. You now have Christopher Columbus saying slavery wasn't that bad. And then they're pushing a narrative right now that it's better to be a slave than to be killed, as if there's nothing in between called liberty or freedom. And so we have some assaults on the sensibility of people right now that is actually happening. And those sensibilities look like, to a Black person who's relatively conscious, like shit's going backwards in a way that we haven't seen accelerating in the past probably 50 years. I'm not saying it's perfect nor good, but what I am saying is when you see the assault on voting rights, the Voting Rights Act, when you see the assault on through gerrymandering, when you see the assault on what was once Black power and Black political power in terms of the Smithsonian and other ways that we have existed and been in this country, you see the assault on DEI, which I know you and I have a huge fundamental problem with, but you're seeing this overt attack on things that look like they are directly aimed at us. So his alarm, I think, is welcome in that respect, that when you aggregate, when you put it all together, it don't look like it's just politics. If it was just politics, we could talk about George W. Bush or Ronald Reagan, but I don't think it's just politics anymore. And I think the alarm is welcome for that reason.
Yeah, in aggregate, I agree with you. Like, you know, and that's the hard part about doing a show that we try to keep an hour long. And, maybe I got a little lost in some of my own passion in this conversation as well, because we didn't get to that, because that's the one. It's kind of like we come to this conclusion and say, to be able to ask the other side, in a sense, in aggregate, how do we look at these things? Because like you said, when you go point for point, there may be some political thing that makes it seem like there's no effort towards our community. What I do know, when we start talking about propaganda, it's always been very convenient to use hidden language that leans into race to get what you want out of your constituents. And so that's the aggregation that I feel like you're referring to, and how I agree with you. And so unfortunately, we're not able to, in a sense, in this situation, pose to a Shelley, or, maybe we could do this next week with Leo, to say, in aggregate, how do you feel like Black people should look at these things from a quote unquote fear-mongering standpoint? Because to Shelley's point, I think he beautifully broke down and I would love to hear what Roland's response would be to him specifically, because I don't think Shelley's wrong in breaking down, because I get aggravated when I go vote. I've lived in different areas here in Georgia, and there is only one person on the ballot, and I know exactly it's because of what Shelley said. Like, I know that's the exact reason. So Shelley's absolutely correct in the dynamics of what specifically is happening for a lot of us in majority Black regions as well. So he's absolutely right about that. So I would love to hear Roland's response. But to your point, when you start going outside of voting, the stuff with the Smithsonian, and I had something to play here with that. But when you start adding those things up, there becomes, I agree with you, some level of alarm that has to be considered. But point for point, you can be like, oh, that doesn't make sense, and kind of just not see the aggregate. So that's where I will say I agree with you. I'm gonna go ahead, brother.
There's probably the hardest part of this is that trying to separate fact from fiction, because we always are on alert. But if we talk just specifically voting, just specifically gerrymandering, just specifically redistricting, let's talk about how the Democrats years ago pushed a constitutional amendment for term limits.
Yeah.
If you want competitive districts, you're going to stop gerrymandering, stop all this nonsense, put in bipartisan, nonpartisan redistricting commissions, and give me term limits. I'm going to give you a generous 4 terms as a representative and 2 terms as a senator. That gives you 8 and 12 years respectively to do whatever you need to do to initiate and close out your plan. And then you got to take a break of at least 1 term for a senator and 2 terms for a congressman before you can run again. We're going to get these people out one way or another. And Mitch McConnell years ago said, term limits is just voting. Well, the problem is incumbents win at an over 90% rate. So we're not going to have this conversation about voters exercising the ability to remove people. The only people who've done that successfully in the last 20 years, the Tea Party, who will scare the crap out of their legislators because they will legitimately primary somebody. If you want to see change without term limits, you're going to have to legitimately primary every single incumbent until they finally quake in their boots.
And so that brings it back to why we exist, politically conscious. It ends up being us to push for these smart things that as we as the people say we want, not to leave it up. Like you said, proposals for term limits. Like these are conversations we can have as the people and start saying to our Congress people, we would like to see that. There's also been a Democratic proposal in the past to end gerrymandering that none of the Republicans were in favor of. Like that's been that's a reality that's happened. I'm not even making that a Democrat or Republic thing. I'm saying to anybody watching, we can ask our actual legislators to continue to push for these things. If we as the people all agree that gerrymandering now no longer serves us, because there was a reason for it in the past, but now it's no longer serving us. If we agree that term limits would help us avoid some of the things that we're talking about, then again, it comes.
You're on mute, Montoya. Something happened to your sound. Okay. Well, this is extra innings. We always go over. This is a lot of fun. Montoya was great today. It was a robust conversation between Montoya and Shelley. Thank you, Shelley, for being back on. We really appreciate whenever you're here. You brought the pain today, and we love it. This is Politically Conscious. If you really, really want to get out of the propaganda, bring not just yourself, bring your friends and listen to us where we break down all of the nonsense and give you facts so you can make decisions based on reality and not what people tell you to see. We're out. I'm Emille Bryant. This is Montoya Smith for Shelley Wynter. Thank you very much for watching.